Hey guys, welcome back to Ken Michaels Radio, where we talk exclusively about the Beatles on this channel. Anything that comes to mind, any topic, the group years, the solo years, what's going on today. We always welcome special guests to our channel here. And indeed, we have a very special guest who has popped up on my other podcast, Things We Said Today and Talk More Talk. It's Chip Madinger, and he is the co-author of, actually, I always have it by my side here. It hardly ever leaves me. Eight Arms to Hold You with Mark Easter. It is the most essential book on the solo careers of the Beatles, all their recordings, and a lot of the stuff that's unreleased and it's been bootlegged through the years, live recordings, you name it, all the way up through the year 2000. And there was an even newer version that we'll talk about, which is available digitally with Chip. And he's also the author of Strange Days Indeed, also known as Lennonology with Scott Raile, all about John Lennon's solo career. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But for this show, I thought we'd talk about, for the most part, the lesser known John Lennon songs that are either still unreleased or released through the years, either through the John Lennon Anthology box set or the signature box set, or maybe a bonus track on one of the reissues. Like Help Me to Help Myself was a bonus track on the Double Fantasy reissue. So Chip, welcome to Ken Michaels Radio. It's good to have you aboard.
Hi, Ken. Thanks for having me.
This is a topic that fascinates me, partly due to the fact that in my career in radio, when I was doing my radio show, Every Little Thing, on WDHA in New Jersey on Sunday mornings, in 1988, we were broadcasting the Lost Lennon Tapes from the very beginning, and it actually kicked off Sunday mornings at 6 a.m., and then I did my show from 7 to 10. So week by week, I got to listen to this extraordinary series, which I think is probably, well, with the two box sets on Plastic Ono Band and Imagine, the Lost Lennon Tapes is one of the greatest gifts that Yoko has given Lennon fans and Beatle fans. But were you a major fan of the radio show from week to week?
Oh, by all means, it was the highlight of the week, much to the chagrin of my now wife.
Uh-huh.
And like you mentioned, I was very glad to have a VCR with a timer for when they started running it at 6 a.m. on Sunday mornings. But no, I listened to it religiously and then took notes every week. And here we are. It's a fantastic gift from Yoko. I'm just thrilled that we were able to have it and to be able to have experienced it in real time.
Yeah, and you covered all that in Eight Arms to Hold You, a lot of these songs, and you even have as a resource a list of all the various bootlegs, the volumes of the Lost Lennon Tapes and what was on each show, which is very helpful too. But yeah, I thought that we would talk about these songs that in some ways they're fascinating. In some ways, they're kind of frustrating for me because many of these songs really and truly were not finished. Many of them are either finished or close to them. So we each kind of went down a list of our own of songs that we thought were worth talking about. So I have about 10 or 11 here that I feel are kind of musts. But we'll also talk about the other songs, like I said, that popped up on solo Lennon releases that you might not be familiar with. But let's start with you and pick one particular song, and then we'll both go back and forth on certain songs.
Well, let's go ahead and start the top of the list here with Whatever Happened To.
Is that your favorite?
Not necessarily, but it's got some fantastic moments.
Yeah.
And one thing that's of interest about it is that it was actually on the tape with Now and Then and Free as a Bird.
Interesting. Yeah, and that song was actually proposed for the Ballad of John and Yoko stage show.
That's the way the story goes.
Yeah. Do you have any information about that show at all that you know about? Like, is there a list of all the songs that were planned for it that we know of? There's some that we have cited here.
There are some that would lend themselves to with the lyrical content. Nothing really springs to mind as just at the moment, but I don't have any internal documents or paperwork or anything that says this was going to be for the play.
Yeah. I remember talking to Elliot Mintz about it because I wanted to know what happened with the plans for that. And he didn't know for sure, but he figured that to put on a show, say in New York City, is so expensive. Maybe they met with some problems for that at the time, but it's kind of interesting that there were songs that were planned for that. But another thing before we talk about these songs that I found really interesting is that shortly before he died, what John said was that he didn't pick up his guitar for the last 5 years, which we know for a fact is not true. To study what he did the last 5 years, and even the unreleased songs before that, he was always writing. And he really did have, like you read about how he lost his muse the last 5 years. I just think that's a whole bunch of nonsense because, you know, he probably picked up a guitar or played the piano when he felt like it. And he was always coming up with ideas.
I would agree. He might not necessarily have had a tape recorder there when he was doing it, but I think he still kept his hand in it by all means.
Right. Whatever happened to, I find to be one of the most interesting of all the unreleased songs because the way he plays the guitar, there's an aggressive playing there, there's a staccato type of playing, and the lyrics are kind of interesting about this woman who's working a 9-to-5 job and she's an artist, but she's kind of losing herself, you know, losing her identity as an artist. And also it should be pointed out that thankfully some of these songs you can look up online and find the lyrics for them. A lot of them you can't make out the lyrics.
Right.
But whatever happened to was really catchy, and I really wish that something more had been done with it, you know.
Well, the lyrical content lends itself to the idea of it being in a play and introducing Yoko and her life before she met John. Is one way to look at it, I suppose.
Okay. All right. So whatever happened to was my number one choice of all of the remaining unreleased ones.
Okay.
What was your, let's go with another one from you.
Oh boy. Well, we can just go down your list here. That's great. So Sally and Billy.
Yep, that's what I picked too.
Yeah. Sally and Billy, you know, I think the earliest recording of that we have comes back from the end of 1970.
Right.
On that compositions tape that they made before they went to the US that December.
And the one that we're most familiar with is from 1976.
We don't have positive dating for that, for the 1976, but that's the traditional date of it. And there was a piece of it that I think ended up in, was it Intuition Online Games?
Well, I've read, in fact, it might have been, yeah.
It was probably in 8 Arms.
In this bootleg.
Yeah.
Free as a Bird, the person who wrote the notes said that it's reminiscent of Only People. And I can understand that, yeah.
I know it was one of them.
I never thought about that until I read that there in the booklet that accompanied it. But yeah, I love the melody of Sally and Billy. It's got this lilting melody, and it's very commercial sounding, and it's very complete. This is a song that's complete, where something could have been done with it. You know, so another really strong track right there.
You have to wonder who Sally and Billy were.
Have no idea.
No idea.
Maybe his Frankie and Johnny.
Could be. Codename John and
Yoko. Okay. What are your thoughts on, because we probably have I'm thinking we might have a similar list. Don't Be Afraid or Mr. Hyde's Comment.
Oh, Don't Be Afraid was a great surprise when it turned up on the anthology box in 98.
Right.
And that one, and it would just appeared at what song was it tacked to the end of? I can't remember which one it was, but it followed one of the 1980 tracks, I believe. So I think that comes from one of the summer 1980 tapes.
Yeah, in fact, in Eight Arms to Hold You, you said the song never aired on the Lost Lennon tapes.
No, it didn't.
So that
So,
was a nice little
yeah,
present for us here.
there's always something. I mean, the Imagine box with the Imagine demo was new. So there are a lot of things still in the Lennon archive, I think, that will hold surprises for us for quite some time to come.
Like I said, Yoko's been very generous, and now you got to give Sean credit as overseeing all the box sets. And we have the Mind Games box set coming out in June, which I can't wait for.
Right.
Any idea what Don't Be Afraid is about? Because it certainly sounds, well, partly like he's singing to Sean, you know.
I don't have anything to add to that. It does seem to kind of be not necessarily a lullaby, but a song to settle Sean down before going to bed.
Yeah, except for the bit about drinking coffee, which he was probably
Right.
young to do then. But I like the lyrics. Don't be afraid. This house is very strange. In the morning we'll be gone. Don't be afraid.
It's
Don't be afraid. It's
very
that's at play. You can just see him singing that to Sean.
very Nilsson-esque.
That's what a lot of people have said. Well, when you've got those piano chords playing like that, you know, those quarter notes, dun dun dun, it's very reminiscent in that way of Harry. But yeah, that was a nice surprise for us. Don't be afraid.
Which for the listeners, it can be found most easily on the Lennon Anthology box.
Yeah, so that was one that was released. Some of these unreleased songs just trickled out on all these different releases here. I'd love to see a box set of some kind, but we'll talk about that later. How about Mirror Mirror?
Mirror Mirror, if I remember correctly, comes from one of the Japanese visits. We've seen John's lyrics written on the piece of Hotel Okura stationery.
Yeah.
And he makes reference to it on another recording. He says, oh, this might be like the one we did in Tokyo. So we actually do kind of have an idea when that dates from, but another great track. Very, it's that minor progression with the descending bass line. I'm trying to remember if any of that ended up in any of the Double Fantasy tracks.
No, but the one thing that's easy to point out, the opening lyrics, sometimes I look in the mirror, there's nobody there. The very end of I Don't Want to Face It, John does that ad lib.
Right.
I look in the mirror, I don't see anybody there. So in its own way, it was taken from one of the lines there.
Isn't one of his lithographs where he's holding up the mirror and looking in it, and he's written across the lyrics across the bottom of that? I don't know if that was post 1980 artwork where somebody just wrote the lyrics on the bottom, or if that was something that was actually John's or not.
Okay, but that song definitely has a very melancholy feel to it, kind of a mournful feel to it, real sad quality, which works really well. Anything else you want to say about it?
Not that. I'm just looking at the list here, and you were asking me what my favorite one is, and I think it probably is India, India.
That's a great one.
It's fantastic, and that one I think we could have seen Paul and Ringo do something with. That would have been very cool. It's just one of those, it's one that they could have done, but
and that one ended up on the signature box set.
Right.
But
right. And it also ended up in Yoko's New York City stage play.
Okay. Yeah, I got to go back to that. I
Yeah.
saw that when it first came out. I have the CD for it.
That's the first commercial appearance of that song. Not necessarily John's performance, but of the song itself. which they have titled with India, comma India, as opposed to just the single words. So for all you other anoraks out there.
But one of the great things about the Lost Lennon tapes and discovering all these demos is learning the whole songwriting process for John, and the fact that very often he'll take from another song to add to a new song. Well, in the case of India, or India, the melody for that really started with Tennessee. And then after that, Memories. It's really the same melody, just India's different words with each song. So he would go back to that melody and use it for something else. But India, the words are really beautiful. And kind of like the Happy Rishikesh song, must have had India on his mind during this time. But it's really, the melody is beautiful. The lyrics flow very well. It is another song that I would call complete.
Performance is great.
Yeah. I love the acoustic guitar sound. Just to give folks a sampling of the lyrics. India, take me to your heart. Reveal your ancient mysteries to me. I'm searching for an answer, but somewhere deep inside, I know I'll never find it here. It's already in my mind.
Would have lent itself to the stage play as well.
Yeah. But you can tell just the words flow, just like poetry. It works so well with that melody. So, yeah, I don't know if I necessarily hear Paul and Ringo working on that, and that's another thing. Are any of these songs that you feel are Beatlesque or would have worked with the Beatles arrangement? I've often wondered when it came to the 4 songs that Yoko gave to Paul for the Beatles Anthology, how those songs were chosen, if maybe the thought was whether it was Yoko or her staff of people, were these songs that would work as Beatles songs, or were these just John's best songs? I wish I knew.
I don't know for certain. An educated guess might be that would be Rob Stevens, Yoko's favorite engineer. He would have just finished working on Ono Box around that time. It could have been any number of engineers who just put together, here are 5 great songs, or here are 10 great songs for her consideration. And then, we saw which ones made it over.
Yeah. Well, sometimes when I'm doing my shows here on YouTube or the podcast shows, you'll have people, especially with Now and Then, having just been released. There's some fans who think that's more of a Lennon solo song. That's not really a Beatles song. I don't know what people are hearing in their heads. Everybody has different sets of ears, but definitely Free as a Bird, just by hearing the demo, I could hear the Beatles doing that, without ever hearing the Beatles recording of it.
When we first heard Now and Then, which was on that Peg Boy bootleg that you just held up for the first time, I didn't hear it, the potential for it as a Beatles track at the time. I thought there might be some better ones, like Whatever Happened To, or maybe A Case of the Blues, which might not have been quite finished, but was very Beatlesque. What else we got here?
Well, the next song that I put on the list was A Case of the Blues.
I'm sorry?
The next song that I put on the list, if you're in the same list, was A Case of the Blues.
Written towards the end of 1968, so it would have been under consideration, I suppose, for the Get Back project, but I don't recall it ever appearing anyplace else but that demo tape with the Don't Let Me Down, the Don't Let Me Down work tape.
It certainly feels like it could fit maybe on the White Album too.
That was the tape. I think that was his work tape. That right after the White Album was completed, this is where he started putting his new ideas down. And so, I could have gone either way for either White Album or Get Back. I don't want to bounce around too much here, but I thought Grow Old With Me would have been an ideal candidate for the third track.
Well, I've gone on and on about this with Girl With Me because I think that song is brilliant. And it's to me, it's a masterpiece. And John said he wanted it to be a wedding song for people. And it was for me, one of four.
Oh, okay.
I had one from each Beatle. But yeah, I just don't know why the Beatles never attempted that. Was it just because after they weren't happy with the results for Now and Then after 2 days, they just said that's it for now and didn't even think about the fourth song because we know that Ringo recorded it. And
Mhm.
when he did release it, it was almost like he wasn't even aware that it was one of the four songs that was given to the Beatles.
Yeah, and that, I won't say it's folklore, but very few, or if any of us have seen that actual cassette. Maybe Grow Old wasn't on it. Maybe they didn't do it because Yoko felt it was a John song and she didn't want to let that go and share the you know the share it with the Beatles.
Hmm.
Uh, does that make sense? She
I
kind of
thought
wanted to keep.
I thought that they got all four songs.
Oh, right, but I
That's what
mean,
I heard, but you're saying didn't each cassette have two songs on
I
them?
don't know any of the particulars about how many cassettes there were, what songs were on each cassette, what songs were actually there. Just basically what people have concluded is that it was those four tracks.
Yeah. But there's no doubt about it. I mean, as much as I love John's demo on Milk and Honey and what they did on the anthology with George Martin and Giles Martin's string arrangement, if the Beatles had done it, it would have become a classic,
Mhm.
I think.
Giles' bass line on that is very McCartney-esque.
Hmm. Yeah. So, and I love that version too. It works with strings,
Mhm.
which I could hear on the Beatles doing it too. So,
Yes.
yeah. Okay. So we talked about A Case of the Blues, which actually is a very repetitive song as John is singing the words. Can't make out all the words. Is there a really good source that you know of? I mean, I could just go and Google all these songs and see if the lyrics appear, and some of them do, especially the ones that came out commercially. But as far as all the other stuff, would you know of a really good source for the lyrics for some of these songs?
I don't want to condone the practice of bootlegging, but there is a collection out there. I believe it's a 9 CD set of all of John's home demos from the Lost Lennon tapes and what were in circulation. I think there's a PDF that comes in that
Hmm.
package that has the lyrics for all the songs.
Because it's hard to make out the lyrics on a lot of them.
This one, Case of the Blues was very much like Glass Onion.
Hmm.
Albino colored shoes and mirrored glasses and the like.
Right. But very often on these demos, the level of the guitar playing is the same as the vocals, and so the vocals get buried, you
Yeah,
know.
without getting into this would have worked because for technical reasons, but I think as you said, the recording levels were matched and would make it difficult without some sort of treatment to try and level them out like they did with Now and Then.
Yeah. Well, that was something I was going to bring up later on because now
Okay.
that kind of software, you can work miracles. You can separate John's vocal from the piano or from the guitar. So you can boost that up the levels and you can hear more clearly what he's singing. So um how do you feel about He Got the Blues? That's another one where it's hard to make out the words.
I'm trying to think which tape that came from.
From a home recording from 71.
Okay, so that's the December 26th tape then would be where that's from.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's
Um,
another one for me anyway. Really good melody. Like I said, hard to make out the words. Wish he had worked on it more.
he decided to go with things like Atticus State and John Sinclair instead.
Uh,
he kind of shifted gears quickly there from at the end of 71 into to work for what would show up on sometime in New York City.
Hmm.
So it's unfortunate that one would have gotten laid by the wayside, but I think it's just kind of a 12 bar, it's, nothing Lennon wrote is nondescript, but that one, there's not a lot that makes it rise above the other tracks, the other compositions.
I think I would agree with that. Yeah. Okay. I got Howling at the Moon in there, a song that I would always play during my Halloween specials.
Okay. I think there's a couple different versions of that, and they were all kind of wrapped up with possibly another composition, and it was just kind of something that was in progress. That song was just a stepping stone from one idea to the next. And unfortunately, I didn't study that so I could tell you what songs go into which here,
but it's all in the book.
Yeah, it's
All
all in
arms to hold you.
I wrote it down because I'd forget it.
There's so much information in that book for a brain, any human brain, to absorb all of that takes an awful lot. But there are many of us who study this stuff, and I really love listening to this every now and then. No pun intended there.
Yeah.
But Howling at the Moon, I think it's another song that's unfinished, but it does have commercial appeal to it. It needs like a bridge or something in there. He started with it, he just didn't really finish it, but
kind of like Across the River.
Yeah.
Maybe those two could have married up, but both in a similar style. Which is another great one that we had not heard of before that brown covered disc you held up.
Boy, we're giving
for the first time on that.
Yeah,
there we go.
So much good stuff on here on one collection.
It really is.
Not
when you were asking about the lyrics earlier,
yeah.
The disc I was referring to is called Between the Lines.
Okay.
So, and I'm pretty certain that has transcriptions for all the demos on it.
Between the Lines, wasn't that an unreleased Lennon song that we've heard about?
That was supposedly going to be the name of his follow-up album to Walls and Bridges.
Right.
Okay. He was prepping. It was I think Tony King mentioned that it was going to be called Between the Lines, and those sessions never came to pass because that's about the time that he reunited with Yoko.
Right.
So no idea about any songs, but
all of a sudden that's reminding me of Street of Dreams, which hopefully one of these days we'll get to hear.
Well, I'm constantly surprised what turns up. I don't know that Street of Dreams ever made it to tape. I know Jack Douglas says that it was taped, while other engineers who were there and would have known say that all he's got is his memory of it, that it never got captured. But I wouldn't be surprised if someday it turns up.
We can only hope. I mean, they wrote that song together, right?
John and Jack?
Jack Douglas, didn't they work on it together, or he produced it? Well, if there is a recording.
I'm not sure of Jack's participation in the composition of that.
Okay. All right. Not for Love Nor Money is another song. That's a pretty enjoyable one. It's also known as Illusions. What do you have to say about that one?
I think that's also man is half of woman, woman is half of man.
Okay.
I think that's another title for it. That one also comes from the December 26, 71 tape. So, after the holidays, turned on the TV and started putting down all his new ideas onto a single tape, and a few renditions in between. One which is always Good for a Laugh is his take on She's Coming Around the Mountain.
Right.
Says
Yeah.
another finger picking version of that. Um,
I was
his
looking,
humor is always with us.
yeah. I was looking into Man is Half of Woman, Woman is Half of Man, and Eight Arms to Hold You. And you had said that it was unbootlegged.
Correct.
It's copywritten by Yoko, September 20th, 1985. But that could still mean it dates all the way back to.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, it's on that full tape from the end of 1971. It's just one of the songs, so actually we can kind of at least put that one in a bucket from when it was composed.
Okay. Yeah, I really like that song a lot. It nice melody. I like the acoustic guitar playing from John on it. It's kind of Mucho Mungo-esque
Mhm.
to
Well
me.
recorded,
What's that?
well recorded.
Yeah,
You know, the whole tape his voice is very clear throughout it.
yeah. That's definitely something worth releasing. And then I have She Is a Friend of Dorothy's, which is a song that was proposed for the Ballad of John and Yoko.
Mhm. You have to wonder who he was talking about.
Well, for those that don't know what that phrase means, it's another way of saying that this person is a lesbian, which I didn't even know until I read your book. All the more reason to pick up Eight Arms to Hold You.
Yeah,
But
well,
it's a different
somebody
kind of
probably
composition. Hmm?
I was gonna say somebody probably has a better definition for the phrase than I,
Okay.
but yeah, you're very close to the mark.
Okay. But it's a very different type of composition, a different kind
Mhm.
of melody, different type of piano playing a little bit from John. What are your thoughts about it?
That one, I think might have be a 76, 77 composition, because if I remember right, it's on the same tape as John's demos for Cooking.
Okay.
Kind of been on one side and on the other side, which She's a Friend of Dorothy's. Um, I've got these notebooks full of all of these maps showing how one song moved into the other and how things are uh, come together on the tapes, which is going to be in a future uh, volume of the book, I hope,
Uh,
because just there's just we're just scratching the surface with the songs that are out there, maybe not complete, but there are several other titles that I've only read about but have not heard.
yeah. But I remember Beatle Fan Magazine, didn't they publish all these song titles all at once, probably in 85? That
Could be.
yeah.
You talking about the copyright dump
Yeah.
with her? Yeah, I'm sure it was published somewhere. I think it's in the Eight Arms as well. Um, but it was 20 or so songs, wasn't it?
Was a lot.
Yeah, I don't have the list right in front of me. Um,
Were there a lot that you didn't recognize at all?
that's something for another episode altogether.
Okay.
Yeah. There are a lot of titles that I'm not familiar with, and actually, I did put them all in one of the indexes for Lennonology, basically just as a placeholder. We'll come back and talk about these guys later, just because there's a lot to say.
Hmm.
Some of these other titles, and like I was talking, some of the road maps might be able to put some of that in there, just to point
Yeah.
the historians in the right way.
Well, She Is a Friend of Dorothy's, you wrote, are from home recordings from 75 and 76.
Okay.
So that makes perfect sense right there. All right. A few other songs here to bring up, songs that were not released. You Saved My Soul.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've always been curious as to what might have been the last song that John wrote. And you say in your book that this very likely could have been the last one, but you don't know for sure?
Don't know for sure. Still of that belief. I looked back on it a little bit more this morning. On the actual tape, John had recorded he'd recorded something. We don't know what it was, but there was clearly some ambience on the tape. And then the Gone From This Place, or not Gone From This Place, You Saved My Soul recordings punch in. So, he picked up a cassette that had something on it and then did Gone From This Place. And then midway through those renditions, he came in, dropped in another punch in for I'm drawing a blank. Ken, give me a hand here. Pop is the name of the game.
Right.
So he's taped Gone From This Place, and then he's taped over it. He's picked up a cassette that was at hand just so he can capture that's Pop is the name of the game idea onto tape. And then the next thing on the tape is the November 14th radio show, which is where the dating comes from. So I have a feeling that You Save My Soul probably predates November 14th. Just because the November 14th recording's on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
Or butted to it. He recorded that much on the tape, and then he started again with the radio show. So keeping that in mind, that the Pop is the name of the game would have been newer than You Saved My Soul, even though Pop in the name of the game's nothing more than
Just saying
a few lines.
Yeah.
But it was definitely on a tape that was at hand in November of 1980. So it could very well be the last song. But, with these, I don't think we're ever going to know for certain, and unless we have the entire tape to take apart and do some forensics on, which is the most fun of all of this.
And I'm pretty sure Pop is the name of the game was copywritten.
I think so.
So I would hope maybe there's a little bit more to the song than just the title.
It seems like he was trying to come up with a rap or a rhythm.
Yeah.
But I didn't see where it was going from just the little bit that we had.
Yeah. He just kept repeating the title. That's
right. So, as much as I'd like to put that tag on it of, this is John's last song, I don't know that we're ever really going to know for certain. We know that the last song written for Double Fantasy was Starting Over. So, I intend on revisiting all of these before putting anything down in stone. So maybe a few more hints will pop out now that we've got some more new tools to take some of these things apart with.
Of course, when you're saying Starting Over was the last song written for Double Fantasy, that was a song in progress because it went through various stages. So it wasn't like it was an entirely new song.
No, but it's just bringing all those disparate parts together.
Yeah.
At the end, that was the last one that was run down to put on the album.
Which is one of the great things about the radio series, is that you got to hear these composites, fractions of a song that later turned up in another song. So, and John did that more frequently than we're aware. He used to make fun of Paul for doing that, for stringing together songs, and he would say those aren't real songs. And John did it, several times. Happiness is a Warm Gun is the one of the biggest examples of that. So
I didn't use this as an example when I was talking about the November 14th tape, but we've got Paul's Christmas album with the We Can Work It Out demo on it. That all of a sudden John starts to read poetry on top of. And from Miss Tiggy Winkle, the Peter Rabbit, Beatrix Potter poem. But he picked up a tape, and in this case it was Paul's demo for We Can Work It Out, and he taped this poetry on top of it. That's the same thing that he did with Papa's the Name of the Game, was recorded over the top of.
Okay.
Okay.
It's interesting that he had Paul's demo there.
Yeah. It's, you know, he recycled tape all over the place. There was a Christmas tape that some girls in New York City had filled up a reel with maybe 90 minutes of them performing Beatles songs and making up plays and professing their love and all of this. And John got it, picked it up, and recorded his Strawberry Fields demos over.
Oh, neat.
So, you know, any tape at hand with John was fair game for getting recorded on.
Interesting. But You Save My Soul is an interesting piece of music, I think, because it kind of has a reggae feel to it. And I also think it's kind of interesting when you look at some of these songs and song titles. Did he have death on his mind? You ever wonder about that? Because between You Save My Soul and Gone from This Place, maybe.
Yeah, they're seemingly biographical, you know, recalling his despair, but you know, they were actually kind of quite upbeat because he's offering thanks for a love that he felt had saved his life.
Right.
You know, there's the diary tape that's widely available that he talks about. He doesn't know whether to get up or jump out the window. And, you know, some people will swing that, oh, he was suicidal, but, you know, he was really just kind of making fun of one of Yoko's song titles. You know, age 39 was he was saying, you know, that was his birthday when he recorded that tape. So it's on age 39. I looking out of my hotel window. So, you know, he was just kind of stringing together another great Lennon bit of humor. Is how I see it anyway.
Okay. Because he mentioned suicide twice in You Saved My Soul. But someone saved him, presumably.
Right. One neat point about that recording is you can tell that he's using an electric with a whammy bar on it. And from Annie Leibovitz's portraits, there's a December 3rd session of him sitting in the bed with his candy apple red Strat with the gold-plated whammy bar on it. So I always kind of associate that picture with when John would have recorded that song.
Okay. I love that photo.
Oh, yeah.
Classic. So Gone from This Place. Very prophetic words.
Yes. Yep. Another great composition. Not exactly sure on how old it is. We know that it popped up while they were recording at the Hit Factory, because it's on one of the running tapes. A little bit of them picking up, I think it was Tony Levin's guitar and trying it out, and that's the tune that was on his mind at the time. But that's another wonderful track. We didn't get to see developed, so.
And yet in the song, apparently he says, I don't want to die. But he also says, I won't be satisfied till I'm gone from this place.
There's another song that's an unrecorded track. Get my thoughts together on it here. Called I'm Ready, Lord. So it was definitely on his mind. That's for sure. When I'm ready, Lord, when the angels come to get me, I'm ready.
When did you record that?
Don't know.
Okay.
And then there's another from back Plastic Ono Band era, where When the Lights Go Down on John Lennon, which is a very, very creepy set of lyrics. I'm not sure how widely available that one is.
You remember any of the lyrics? Don't want to put
let's see. If you want to give me a second to look them up here. I can do
Yeah.
that.
We're also going to talk
Sure.
about some of the songs that were released anyway, and we've done a few of those, but there's some that are definitely worth mentioning. But yeah, if you get a chance, folks, I mean, one of the great things about YouTube, you can listen to just about everything we're talking about here. And anyone that thinks that the last 5 years of John's life, he just was only baking bread and taking care of Sean, there were other things that he did, and he did spend a considerable amount of time writing material. What John thought of the material, we'll never know, but he did revisit some of these songs and use them in future songs for himself. And that's one of the great things about studying this stuff. Hearing fragments of one song pop up somewhere else, or a line like we were talking about with Mirror Mirror, something similar to that opening line appearing at the end of I Don't Want to Face It. And just by hearing all these different demos, you learn this stuff. A song like Real Love went through a lot of different forms, a lot of different songs with different titles, different lyrics. So it's really just interesting to know what stuck in John's mind, what he wanted to bring back, what he felt could work in a certain song. And so you learn, the whole song craft from John.
Well,
Songs were completely new. And then there were songs where he took from previous songs that weren't finished.
well, the When This Life Is Done, brackets, and the Angels Come was on the same tape as One of the Boys and Mirror Mirror on the Wall,
Okay.
which we touched on already. As for lyrics, let's see.
So that would have been 1977.
I'm guessing that it's late 79, but I'm reticent to go on record with any of these because I put all these notes together maybe 15 years ago and I need to get refamiliarize myself with them. But let's see, did I have any lyrics here? Gospel influenced chorus, which at the time consisted of little more than the repeated lyric, I'm ready, Lord, and I'm ready now. And after a couple run throughs, he changed the song title to When My Life Is Through, When My Life Is Done, and the Angels Come. So
I'm Ready, Lord was not a separate song. It's part of this song.
right.
Okay.
Right. But as for lyrics, I don't have any more than that.
Okay.
Maybe someday we'll find it. Maybe someday it'll be available. I'd sure like to hear it again.
Okay. How do you remember it? Sounds kind of gospel-y.
Being gospel-y and mournful, but hopeful.
Yeah. I know that John, one of the medleys, I think he did People Get Ready.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of like in that vein, you think?
Yeah, could be. I'm thinking kind of Watching the Wheels, but then that had so many different demos. But just the simple piano based, that, or he did a gospel version of Serve Yourself, which we haven't talked about yet, which was probably one of the best known Lennon demos because it was the first to really appear. That one was available, several years before the Lennon tape series.
Right.
I don't think I'm betraying any confidences that it came from Albert Goldman during his researches when that turned up.
Okay.
How it became booted.
Well, why don't we talk about Serve Yourself?
Sure.
Those are among the songs that did eventually get released, but there's actually two versions that came out commercially. There's the one on the John Lennon Anthology box set, which is the acoustic guitar version, and some pretty wild lyrics in that version. And then there was a much tamer version of John doing it on the piano, which is on the signature box set.
And there are, I would guess that there are an hour's worth of Serve Yourself demos prior to the acoustic guitar version, which was recorded in Bermuda. And his performance, as you mentioned, is kind of over the top. It's very animated, and at the end you can hear Yoko giggle a little bit. So I think he was trying to put the show on for her, and that some of the lyrics might have been just for shock value, I guess. But very amusing. I can't recommend it highly enough for people to go search that out who haven't heard it already.
I think the first time people hear it, they'll be in shock. That
Mhm.
version sounds like he's singing it right to Sean.
Oh yeah. Oh, he has to be. Sean has to be there. It's in the fridge.
I love the ad-libbing in there
Yeah.
from John. I'm telling Sean, wash your ears, stuff like that. Really
Just
good stuff.
things.
But gotta mention, of course, it's a parody of Gotta Serve Somebody.
Of course. Which
So
he was actually doing on this last tour of his. He actually pulled out Serve Yourself,
really,
the part of the set list for his current tour.
had it been a long time since he did it?
I'm not that much of a Dylan guy. I just know he did it in St. Louis when he was here.
Yeah. Well, got a lot of attention, that song, when it first came out.
Yeah.
So yeah. So we mentioned Mr. Hyde's Gone, which is another one that's on the anthology box set. Dear John is on the anthology box set. We didn't talk about that. I actually really like that one quite a lot. Just telling John to relax, and take it easy. The race is over, he says. You've won. I think you even said, was it you maybe, that it's kind of lyrically kind of like Hold On.
And it's also informed by September Song, which
Oh yeah.
the melody which you hear him actually break into at the end of.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, because of that with Dear John, did you ever think that with Free as a Bird, the whatever happened to part, don't you think that might have been taken from the Shangri-Las? Remember Walking in the Sand?
Could be. I don't know that it was conscious. Just kind of like the My Sweet Lord, He's So Fine. It just, that's just how it came to him, and he was, something in the back of his head. Oh, that'll fit well here, and it just happened to be the same as the Shangri-La's track.
Well, it is similar melodically there, and John didn't finish that part of the song. It was the perfect vehicle for Paul and George to add their vocal parts and to add more to the songwriting, just that part of the song. But yeah, it could have just been like September Song. This was like what was entering John's head then, what to fill in the song with, and it wasn't completely finished. I sometimes wonder about that.
There's another where he's going through his demo, and I'm drawing a blank on which one it was. There are so many that he breaks into a Buddy Holly track. And I know that's in Eight Arms, but I am not seeing it at the moment. Which song was that?
I don't know, but I'll tell you, I don't think enough people, when they think about Dear Prudence, the sun is up, the sky is blue, it's beautiful, and so are you. There's a line in Raining in My Heart from Buddy Holly, which
what he breaks into is Raining in My Heart.
Yeah.
Very good. No, but I'm trying to remember what song he was recording at the time. But just to circle around and end the point, there were, he has to be informed by what he's heard before and inspired by it, because that's what makes all artists is their reinterpretation of the ideas that they've seen and the amalgamation of those ideas. And so I don't think he was doing anything consciously.
Well, whatever. It could have
What
just
do
been,
you or
I don't know. It's like if you think about what he did with September Song, this could have been the exact same thing with Free as a Bird.
Mhm.
And maybe he consciously knew where it came from, or maybe he didn't. But
he just kind of recognized it while he was actually doing the recording at that point? Because you can hear him laugh as he's doing it.
hmm, yeah, well, I heard Remember Walking in the Sand when I heard it
Okay.
this time, so that's just me. But Dear John, I really think, for one of his last songs, it's a powerful statement just to take things easy and don't be
Mhm.
so hard on yourself. As he says, give yourself a break, you know.
So,
Uh,
like you mentioned earlier, an updated version of Hold On.
yeah, yeah, I think so. The Rishikesh song, it's a lot of fun.
Mhm.
What do you have to say about that?
Um, that it's definitely not from uh, a 1968 demo session. It's a
Oh yeah.
much later recording because you hear him take the piss out of George's Blowaway. The meter of the lyrics and is it you've heard it, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah, but I gotta tell you, I got so used to the Rishikesh song being what it is that I didn't immediately associate it with Blowaway. But
And also that piece that turned up was another surprise that showed up on the anthology box was how that Rishikesh song went into and I've just dropped the name of it. Something's wrong, and then it circles back and finishes up uh,
hmm,
with where it started. So
so much of what John did were medleys, just stringing them together.
stream of consciousness.
Yep. But I'm glad we get to listen to all this
Oh
stuff.
yeah,
Life Begins at 40.
that I can kind of see the Beatles doing it, but with the lyrical content, it's kind of locked in with. It's going to be what it is. I don't know that we would ever see anything more out of that. Anything uh, developed by George and Paul,
Well, it was
or
meant for
Ringo and
Ringo.
Paul. Right.
It was meant for Ringo. So, because John gave him a tape of that demo,
Mhm.
and that was in November of 1980 for then it was Can't Fight Lightning, his
Right.
album. It changed to Stop and Smell the Roses. So, but Ringo chose not to record the song, just like Nobody Told Me
Hmm.
was supposed to be for Ringo.
Yeah, there are a few more of those. This has got to be for Ringo typed comments peppered throughout some of these demo tapes. Um, that, like I said, I've still got to string all that together and try
But
to make sense out of it. But
even if Ringo did tackle Life Begins at 40, he'd have to change a few of the words there. John mentions jerking around in the song, so can't see Ringo singing those words.
no,
But it's a cool song. It's got a real country and western feel to it, which could explain why it would work for Ringo. But they had to do some cleaning up on the lyrics, that's all.
well, you may remember that when the Lost Lennon tapes first aired, that they did promos on shows like Entertainment Tonight or something like shows like that, and Life Begins at 40 was the big discovery that they were hanging the series on. Here's John singing this song when he was 40 years old, and this is the kind of cool stuff you can expect because
Mm,
we'd heard about the title before
right.
the series, and it was really something to you know realize that did exist.
And, the irony of John saying that, and he dies at the age of 40. But Ringo turned 40 that year, as did John.
Mhm.
So it was planned for him. I guess it was way too painful for Ringo to try to do with what had just happened.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine him going there.
I don't know if I ever heard anybody ask him about that or about Nobody Told Me.
Mhm.
Sure, I'd be curious to find out what his thoughts were if he remembered being given the demos for those songs. And there's One of the Boys, which
Mhm.
you mentioned before. That I think is a real nice surprise.
Let's see. Did we talk about When a Boy Meets a Girl?
We didn't talk about that one.
Plastic Ono Band era.
Mhm.
There's Say It Again, which is a really cool melody laid over the chords of I Want You, She's So Heavy. And that comes from the December 71 tape as well.
It's a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, there is. There
Some of
sure
it I
is.
gotta refresh my memory for some of this because there's a lot of material here.
Do we talk about Across the River?
We did, but we didn't
Okay.
really say anything about One of the Boys, which I think is a very complete song.
Mm-hmm. It
You
is.
know, it's another song with a melody that sticks in your head and kind of wonder what the song's about. I mean, I don't know if it was you that wrote that since Brian Epstein referred to the Beatles as the Boys,
Right.
maybe he was talking about himself in the song. They say that he's aged very well. He's just
Right.
the boys. So it's just a thought in my head. Um, if it could be about himself. But
I'm
it's
gonna
got a very memorable melody stuck in there, you know.
You're as dumb as you feel right now. Um, yeah, it needs some more lyrics, but it's got a very strong melody and performance going for it.
Yeah. It's like I
You want
said,
to talk about the radio?
a lot of these songs are finished and a lot of them are close to being finished. So
Want
um
to talk about the radio series a little?
yeah, but one more song I wanted to bring up
Okay.
was Help Me to Help Myself, which ended
Oh,
up as a bonus track on Double Fantasy when it came out.
right.
A few bonus tracks on there. What do you make of that song?
You look at what I made of that song.
I'm glad they put it on there as a bonus track. Although I kind of prefer, I wish all these demos would just be on one collection. I mean, commercially.
It'd be huge. Um, Help me to help myself. He's invoking the Lord again. Maybe another apology to Yoko song. The answering service keeps on telling me that it won't be allowed. So yeah, it definitely had some potential. Fortunately, one of the recordings we have of it, the batteries on his recorder were running out, so it gets a big speed differential from the beginning to the end. So I'm sure somebody will fix that with their new audio tools.
Yeah, definitely has a gospel feel to it.
Mhm.
Kind of wish he did more work on it, but it's good the way it is, as it exists on the Double Fantasy CD. But I do love it.
There's
Just
another track that was similar called "I Don't Want to Sleep Alone" that had the same lyrics, but your answering service keeps on telling me that you left home. So I can see those two tracks kind of making their way into "I'm Losing You."
okay. Well, that's why it's handy to study all this stuff.
Yeah, we can't even do it service with you need to hear these and familiarize yourself with them, and I'm sure there are all sorts of interesting observations that haven't come to the fore yet.
Yeah. Well, like I said, anyone who's not familiar with these songs, just go on YouTube and you can probably hear all of them. I'd love
Mhm.
to hear your thoughts about each of these songs. But let's talk about the Lost Lennon tapes and these recordings in general. How do you think um, these recordings have been handled by the Lennon estate so far? Do you like how they came out on the Lennon Anthology, signature box set, et cetera, et cetera?
I can't say enough about Yoko's generosity in that respect. I mean, she's given us so much beyond the canon albums, just to show so much more of his, his composing process has
Mm.
become evident, and I just think it's just a wonderful gift, uh, that with 218 hours worth of programming, there are all sorts of things to be discovered there. There was some duplication, but uh, you know it was mind-boggling.
Yeah, well, as someone who has my radio background, and unfortunately, a lot of young people don't appreciate the way radio was and how important radio was. It really worked as a great teaser every single week. If you heard just one thing that you never heard before, it made you look forward to the next show. You had to wait a
Exactly.
week for it. And the radio series not only had unreleased songs, but alternate takes of songs, different mixes of songs, interviews with John and Yoko. There was something to look forward to just about every single week that possibly you never heard before. So it really was a treasure trove of a lot of great material. So, and I mentioned the Double Fantasy CD for Help Me to Help Myself, and there's bonus tracks on Mind Games and Walls and Bridges and of demo stuff I'm talking about.
Mhm.
And some of that material is just amazing. That acoustic guitar demo of Nobody Loves You When You're Down and Out, which is a bonus track on Walls and Bridges, it's amazing.
Mhm.
I mean, I love the studio recording with the band, but oh my God, it's so powerful of just John alone and acoustic guitar and something like that.
I don't know if there's a radio programming Hall of Fame for shows such as the Lost Lennon Tapes, but it definitely has a place there.
Oh, definitely. Um, yeah. And nowadays, if you're into this stuff, we're all spoiled. You can just go on YouTube and hear a lot of it. You won't have to wait every single week for the next thing.
It made the transition without a hiccup into the Beatle years. It
Yep.
flipped it was, and I have to say I haven't gone through the Beatles years episodes to see if any unreleased stuff popped up in that or not. If they followed the same formula or if it was something completely different.
Yeah, I didn't really follow most of that series.
Because
Lost Lennon Tapes is more to my liking.
but you're not going to hear a lot of other places where you've got an 11-minute version of such and such, that they just let run. That's one thing I'll say. There were two different producers for the series for the first 2+ years. It was Stephen Peoples,
Hmm.
um, and then Laurie Crimmy did the remaining episodes. And Stephen's stuff was well written and very poppy and great examples, and Laurie would tend to let things run a little bit longer, whereas Stephen was trying to make it more of a interesting radio broadcast, and so things got edited and things got sped up and things got processed. But it was just a brilliant series.
Oh yeah. Well, and I used to do all kinds of specials revolving around the Lost Lennon tapes, like the alternate Imagine album or the alternate Mind Games album. Because once you compile all those different takes of each song and you can play it on the air, and since we ran the show, we had the right to do that. So it was
I
really
still,
great.
I still remember, I don't remember which song it was, but when we got the last Imagine track where we could make an alternate album, we'd had 9 of the 10, and then they finally broadcast the missing piece, and we were off to the races then.
And now with the box sets coming out, there's so many alternate takes of these
Mhm.
songs. And it was on the Lost Lennon tapes too. But what a gift. Definitely, so grateful to Yoko for doing that. What would you like to see done if you had the power with the remaining recordings that so far haven't been released? Or maybe you might want to combine it with the stuff that has been released.
I think the way they're running now with the box sets and adding in some demo material, obviously that's going to continue as long as they continue with the sets. I don't know that a box set like the Peg Boy bootleg, which even though it's got 20 tracks and it's sequenced well and the like, I don't see that as being a big money maker. So what I'd hope to see is whether it's free or whether it's a subscription service or something like that, but that they are made available to researchers and hobbyists and fans and the like in their entirety, via download. Kind of like maybe like Apple Music, where you can get the Atmos mixes, but you don't have a physical copy, but you can still hear them in their entirety. That's what I'd hope to see for them, but there are just so many.
Yeah, I just feel, and I definitely have changed my opinion through the years as someone who, when I was a teenager, I was anti-bootleg. And now I've just come to feel that when it comes to any iconic act like the Beatles or the Beatles as solo artists, or a Bob Dylan or anybody like that of that stature, that everything should come out. Virtually.
Well, Dylan's doing it right with the the box sets and including everything from the 65 and 66 sessions. I mean, that was just an amazing box. And I'd love to see John's stuff like that. I don't know that, well, I don't think we'll ever see it in physical format because they've got the template for their box sets now, here's the disc of ultimate mixes and here's the disc of stripped down stuff. So I don't see large chunks of the demos falling into that. But boy, that'd be great for research. Even if it did something like going into the British Library with the Stowe recording of the Beatles live set.
Oh yeah. See, that's another thing. That's what I wish I had asked Peter Jackson about this, because we just did a show on Things We Said Today with him for the second time. I didn't get around to asking him about that. I brought up the Quarrymen recordings and see if those
Well,
cleaned up.
I'd hope that the Lennon Library would be in the States to make it a little more convenient, but wherever it goes, I'll be there.
Well, I would love to see physical releases. And I
I
do
would
think
too.
that given her track record of how generous Yoko's been through the years, not just with the box sets, but the radio series, she probably feels it should all come out.
I
So,
just hope they don't follow the template of not including a physical copy of the Atmos mix. Making that available only through streaming services, I think, is a slap in the face to the fans.
Hmm.
If you're charging that much to add a Blu-ray into it, isn't going to change your bottom line that much.
right.
It makes all the difference for the fans, because if you don't have the gear, you don't have the subscription, you can't hear it.
Hmm.
Whereas if you got the disc, you can take it over to your buddy's house who has the gear and play it and hear it. Whereas, so I've got great hopes for the Mind Games box, that it is going to have the Blu-ray with the surround, but I don't know for certain.
Well, I just
Get me
think
started.
if there's any concern about physical releases and whether or not they'll sell and the cost of it, just make a limited amount. Do that for everything. I'd like to see all the solo Beatle albums be given in a box set of some kind if there's enough material for each album.
There's another conversation right there. Is when's Paul going to finish the archive series?
It's been a long time now
Yeah.
since Flaming Pie. So,
But wanting for copies of McCartney 3.
Every year there's going to be something on McCartney 3 coming out for collectors.
Do you know why?
Why?
I don't know why. It makes absolutely no sense to me that he keeps picking the same album over and over and over again.
Well, I don't know if that's his doing, because I went to a press event for Now and Then in New York City, and I asked our Capitol rep, when it comes to all these different versions of his albums coming out, like McCartney 3 with all the different colored vinyl and everything, is that Paul's idea? And he said, no, that's all the record company. And Paul signs up on it. So I'm sure, even though I believe the majority of Paul's fans really are not that fanatical that they're going to buy 10 versions of the same thing. I think most of them buy one copy, but there are those that will buy the other ones. And so initially it'll have a high debut on the charts. And then most of these albums, like I've said in my podcast, from veteran artists, the real loyal fans go out and gobble it up the first few weeks or for a month, and then it dies. Just it's nowhere on the charts.
Right.
But it helps to have all these different versions, and you'll find that with a lot of artists, not just veteran artists. There'll be, who is it? BTS has different versions of their new album, different vinyl or different covers, front covers for the album, any kind of gimmick for the fans to buy more than one version. So yeah, you'll find that quite a lot just to help boost the sales, because on the charts, the physical sales matter more than streaming.
Mhm.
But with young fans who stream a lot, if you have millions of streams, that counts a lot. But the sale of an album, a vinyl album or a CD, still counts more than a stream. So knowing that older fans are more likely to buy the physical, that's why they put out all these multiple copies on.
Yeah, I mean,
vinyl.
they've marketed it. If they're trying to maximize the sales of the album, I mean, they're marketing it properly by, we started out with 3 colors, and then there was a 4th, and it's okay, I'll keep the set together, and then there was a 5th, and okay, I've got the other, so I might as well buy this one. And I mean, that's been going on for 3 years now. So I
Well,
hate to admit how many copies of that album I have.
I say in most cases, it's really geared towards the collector. Someone like myself only cares about having every song.
Mhm.
So if I have to get the deluxe edition after I bought the regular edition, then I'll do that.
Yeah.
So that's how they get me, because I have to have every song from all the Beatles, group, solo, whatever's been released. I have to have that. That's more important than the colored vinyl to me, colored CD.
Great.
That's just me anyway. I don't tell people how to buy. As you know, in the podcast that I work with, I got people there that buy everything, and if it makes them happy,
Right?
it can't be that bad.
No,
Are you familiar with a band from Spain called Los Escarabajos?
I am.
You are? Okay.
I did the lyric transcriptions for them when they
Ah,
were recording the Lennon File album.
I didn't even know that, because obviously, there's a group that felt that these songs should be heard. It should be out there.
Mhm.
So how did they know you from your books or what?
I think they knew me from 8 Arms,
Yeah.
and I was available online, and he wanted to make sure that it was done right, so he sent me the lyrics as they had them, and can you check them and can you do them? I remember doing one of the which one was it?
Because I just have the digital files. I don't have the physical CD for that, but
Yeah, I can't remember what, but yeah, I went through and checked all those. So if I remember right, it was quite well done.
oh, I liked all the versions they put out. I think there were 12 songs altogether, but I hadn't been familiar with anyone else that did that.
I reached out to Enrique yesterday to see if it was still in print or not, and I've not heard back from him. So you folks are on your own then. But it's called Lennon File, Phile. Is that correct?
I think so. Okay, but the band is Los Escarabajos, which I think is Beatles in Spanish, correct?
And they're actually on tour right now. So
Oh, okay. See if they have a website or something.
yeah,
See if you can get that album or CD. Also, there's Pamela Davis. Are you familiar with her?
I've seen the videos. I've seen the thumbnails of all the different videos, but I haven't gone there. So I am familiar with what she's done, but I'm not familiar with her performances.
She plays guitar, and she's from New Jersey, and she's put up a whole bunch of videos of songs of these unreleased Lennon songs. So, and they have like full band arrangements to them.
I did look at a little bit of Now and Then this morning, and it was interesting to see how she kicked it off like it probably should have been kicked off.
Uh-huh.
A nice bit of slide, but she's got what, 20, 25 of those?
It's a lot, you know, but she's definitely has a mission here at
Yeah,
wanting these songs to be heard. So I'm glad that she's doing this. If you can, check that out on YouTube. Pamela Davis is her name. Um, yeah. So with the Lost Lennon tapes, as I was saying before, learning the whole songwriting process has been probably, one of the greatest joys in studying that series. And one of the things that you'll find, like I mentioned before, if you look at some of these song titles, because I was making notes as I was doing this show, apologize about problem with the lighting here.
I thought I was having a stroke.
No, no. Ah, got some kind of wiring problem here with my lamp. Anyway, starting over, we talked about earlier, there was a song called My Life, which really was the very beginning of starting over with different lyrics, the same chord progressions. There was another song called Don't Be Crazy,
Mhm.
which is like the part where John's saying,
Middle eight, the triplets.
yeah, right. So when you hear all these different songs and where they originated from, and the fact that John took a fragment from here and a fragment from there, it really is fascinating to me.
It's a
Real,
huge jigsaw puzzle, and we've only got just so many pieces to work with. So it's always exciting when something new pops along that lets you finish the frame or finish another chunk of the puzzle.
yeah, I wish I could find it. I might have it here in my notes, but one of the songs starts off exactly like the piano on Grow Old With Me, and then it goes into a different song.
And
So,
I
yeah,
know what you're talking about and can hear it, but
huh,
might have been memories, maybe. Um, I should be taking notes on all these questions you're asking me
yeah,
so I don't cover them in the book.
I had a lot of notes here. Um, but I will find it. I promise you before the end of the
Yeah.
um,
What song was that?
but Real Love, oh my God, how that song and the melody shifted over the years. The melody was the same, but the lyrics kept on changing. Um,
Well, this Between the Lines set has done a great job of sequencing things with an educated guess. I mean, they've got them in the right order, and then the liner notes are good at making these connections. Like this beginning for this song was the same as the beginning for Real Love, or they've done a very good job of the timeline for these recordings.
well, I definitely have to read all that. Be nice to have it all in one spot for everything to be
Mhm.
lined out for you. But yeah, there's a song that John wrote called That's the Way the World Is,
Mhm.
and that turned into Real Love. When the Lost Lennon tapes first aired, I think it might have been the very first show I saw on the track sheet, Girls and Boys. And that's the same thing that became the acoustic Real Love that was um,
Imagine
on
John Lennon.
Imagine John Lennon, right? Same one. And then there was also Real Life, you know,
Mhm.
all these different songs that turned into Real Love. So it's just interesting to hear how everything metamorphized.
We have a lot of pieces for the Real Love puzzle, but it's tough to put together. There are just lots of little fragments all over the place that ended up in the final piece.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And Baby Make Love to You has
Right, right.
chords to that. Yeah. Yeah. There was a long life for Real Love before we heard the version that well, there's the Beatle version and there's the acoustic guitar one on Imagine John Lennon.
I
So
wish I would have found this file before we started because I've got the song lyrics for every one of these demos.
even
Uh,
for the ones that are hard to make out.
yeah, tell me one of those and I'll tell you what I can find here. What was one of those?
How about, let me see. Um, how about Across the River?
That has an interesting history too, because I think it's kind of based on a Eastern philosophy. There's a story that goes with it about a man crossing the river. Are you still carrying that woman across the river? I left her there a long time ago. You're still carrying that woman across the river. I left her there a long time ago. Now she's gone. She's all alone. Um, yes, the lyrics were very undeveloped at this point, um, at least for this take of it. I think there was a second one that wasn't on the radio series that was a little more complete.
Okay.
Somebody could write a book on these, you know?
Oh, definitely. Are you volunteering?
Oh, it's very far along. You know, when I started on the Lennon Anthology project, I was kind of writing 4 books at the same time.
Hmm.
So it's in very good shape if I were to pull it all together. It's just not, I'm not sure how to the best way to release it.
Yeah, I'm not finding my notes here about the song that starts exactly like Grow Old With Me. But another song that I picked out was Pill.
Mm-hmm.
Um, kind of reminds you, there's a melody in there which it kind of, it's similar to Meat City, and there was a demo of Meat City called Shoeshine.
Mm-hmm.
At the very end of that demo, there's a melody which you could hear a bit in Pill, and it's the same melody that John sings at the end of Steel and Glass.
Yes, the
Uh,
coda Steel and Glass.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah. So all those little things that you notice just from listening to all these demos, it's really fascinating.
That Pill demo is from the end of 71 as well.
Yeah.
And for anybody that's not familiar, it was about John and Yoko's uh, dabbling with methadone, is what he was referring to there.
Okay. So for me, I mean, that's one of the great um benefits in listening to all this stuff. If you really love John Lennon, you understand it, you know, the songwriting craft from listening to all this stuff. Some songs completely exist on their own because I don't think whatever happened to sounds like anything else he's ever done.
No,
And
I mean they're not necessarily for the casual listener or fan, but for anybody that's well versed in the whole canon and wants to know how that result was obtained. You know, this is just a whole world of information to parse out.
yeah, well, for me, it's not just an education because I love hearing demos. I like hearing songs in their most bare form, you know, and sometimes one person with an acoustic guitar or with a piano, you might like that version more than the finished version in the studio.
Sure.
It's more intimate, you know. And sometimes if you're fortunate, you might hear a different set of lyrics that wasn't in the finished version. So that stuff I find really fascinating.
It's just like Now and Then and the chunk that was left out.
Yeah.
You know, here you can hear it in place. The only thing that bothers me a little bit is how the water's getting muddied with people trying to apply AI to these demos and all of that, and muddying up the water for the uh, for the researchers.
Hmm. So it bothers you to separate John's vocal from a piano or from a guitar?
Not so much that, but it bothers me for somebody to go in and record a new guitar line or add drums or something like that to one of these demos.
So you weren't really in favor of Free as a Bird and Real Love?
Or I'm talking more about, you're talking Beatles and I'm talking more
YouTube. Yeah,
Oh, you're
where
talking about what
fan
other-
created AI, and that's what's not what the Beatles are doing, not what Paul and Ringo are doing, but what a fan might do, just to try and say, well, here's a different version of it. This got a guitar on it. It's really something that's been added after the fact.
or when they'll take a certain artist and have them sing a song that someone else has hit with
Mhm.
the same backing tracks, probably. It's or having a younger Paul on a song that he recorded more recently so that you can hear what he sounded like, say, in the 80s or something like
Mhm.
that. You know?
Why
Yeah,
I'm hoping to get,
yeah.
I was going to say that's why I'm hoping to get this information out there somewhere so that the history is well documented for people that want to go back and hear it, and how they'll be able to sort things out from what was after the fact and what was really just John alone.
I often think about, and I bring this up once in a while, Dave Morrell, who used to work at Capitol Records and Promotions, and at the time when Press to Play came out, and there was a press party in New York City, and a year before that, the Beatles Sessions album was being proposed, and the Beatles vetoed that. And Dave had asked Paul, he was there at the party, why that was, and it bothered Paul that these alternate takes would come out, like "Can't Buy Me Love" take whatever, and some new fans will think that's the take. That's the
Mhm.
one to listen to. So it might confuse new fans getting into the Beatles. Well, things sure have changed since then.
Yeah, they have.
you know, just the fact that the Beatles Anthology came out with all those alternate takes and take ones of certain songs,
Mhm.
like "Tomorrow Never Knows" and all this stuff. And so they certainly loosened things up with their catalog. And now, every single album, there'll be alternate takes of almost every song, maybe an unreleased song here and there, or some big surprise. And so things have definitely changed.
Well, one thing that was really cool about year one and the beginning of year two of the Lost Lennon tapes were the inclusion of the Escher demos.
Yeah.
And what happened is somebody mentioned them to Paul at a press conference on his tour in 1990. And there was immediately a C&D that went out that said Westwood One couldn't play any more than the Escher demos.
I didn't know that.
Mhm.
Wow.
It's on tape, and I want to say it might have been Belmo who asked, or one of the authors out there, but
Uh-huh.
somebody asked Paul about those, and next thing we knew, we weren't hearing any more of them.
Interesting. No, I remember I was kind of shocked when they aired the White Album demos. I think they also added the Deco edition recordings, which is not a big deal, but I mean, it wasn't like ever an official release. It was always on small labels that came out. But just to have that stuff, something unusual on the group, that
I
kind
mean,
of
who would have expected a demo of Mary Jane that you'd ever hear that, or a demo of God? You know, your younger, you never would have imagined that you'd hear this stuff, and it's like we've said, just a fantastic gift.
you know, it was a blessing that we got that. And I only wish that, new fans would experience something like that, like, you know, one unreleased song a week or something like that, and you
Mhm.
look forward to it. Um, like I said, today people are spoiled with what's out there. So
It- Collecting now is a lot different than when you and I began.
sure, yeah. Why don't we tell the folks about first Eight Arms to Hold You? It's still
Okay?
available, and it's only available digitally, right?
Right. Eight Arms to Hold You was published in 2000 as a history of the Beatles' work as solo artists. We sold through the run of that, Mark Easter and I, and we were seeing it go for three figures online. So we decided we'd like to see it available to people so they don't have to by the book necessarily. So we went through, made corrections, added about 30,000 good words, took out about 30,000 bad ones. And so there's a lot more information, especially when it comes to recording dates in the E version, which kind of gets referred to as Eight Arms to Hold You Remastered. Now, it still only covers the period up through 2000, but it's a wealth of information, and to have a searchable document for under $20 nowadays is quite useful. A useful reference.
Yeah, I can't believe all the work that was poured into that.
I look at it now and I'm like, who did all this? And it was just things that I picked up. I was always taking notes whenever, I got another package of tapes in the mail, or, writing down set lists while I'm driving to work. And, that's how I got to hear all of the 76 and 89 and 90 and, all those audience recordings. And that's why we never went past 2000, is because it just got, there's nothing but Paul and Ringo live shows.
Well, be grateful we still got them.
Yeah. But that's available on the LennonAntology.com website. And just to transition, then there's the Strange Days Indeed, which is a history, a timeline of John and Yoko's professional and some personal life timeline from 66 through 1980. And that is only available in physical form as either a paperback or a hardback. Still a few hardbacks left, and of course it's available at the LennonAntology.com website as well.
Right. Well, there you go.
There we are.
Be in my description box if anybody wants to visit the website. And Chip, the work you've done is just staggering. With your co-authors,
Yeah.
You have Scott Raile. I'm losing my voice. Scott Raile for Strange Days Indeed. And I wanted to say, but you also brought it up. It's not just the studio recordings. You got all the live dates in there, the set lists on each tour, songs that were rehearsed, or songs that there's a lot of song titles in there, especially around the off the ground sessions that I never heard about at all. And I don't even think they've been bootlegged. Just all this stuff that it's amazing all that you put together here up through 2000. And if any of these recordings or alternate takes or unreleased songs are on bootlegs, you put them on there. If certain versions of songs are just a few seconds longer than the previous one that you wrote about, that's on there. If people want to check out all the different outtakes, and it's just it blows my mind, all the work just on Eight Arms to Hold You. And then you've got Strange Days Indeed. Lennonology is not the actual title of the book. It is Strange Days Indeed, but
it's Lennonology : Strange Days Indeed. Is the formal title. A Scrapbook of Madness is the subtitle, referring to John's comments in the Rolling Stone interview.
Right. Okay. So for anyone curious, and I definitely recommend getting both those books, visit LennonAntology.com. And Chip, this has been tremendous. You've already tempted me to do another show with you about
Right.
songs from 1985 that Yoko had copywritten. Although if we haven't heard them, what can we say about them other than the song titles?
True.
But we'll come up with something else.
Right. Well, I'm very proud of the work that Scott and Mark put in with me on those books, and I'm really proud of what we achieved.
As you should be. I mean, I always bring up Eight Arms to Hold You in particular because it is the essential book taking you through the year 2000. Anything you wanted to know about, and even the lesser known albums, the albums from Ringo that a lot of people don't know too much about, that didn't sell that well. All the songs from there, any information about it, the background information, any stuff that's unreleased, it's all in there. So definitely, folks, check out Eight Arms to Hold You and Strange Days Indeed. And
it's well under the Christmas tree.
Okay, it should be for every Beatle fan. Okay. You've given us a couple of great gifts, Chip, and
Thanks, Ken.
thank you so much for joining us here.
My pleasure. Look forward to doing it again.
Okay.
Be more prepared next time.
Okay. Thanks so much for joining us, folks. We'll see you real soon.
Go on.